Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants, the live edition. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, presented by FanDuel. And Carl, there's a lot of excitement as the Giants slay the dragon and finally beat the Philadelphia Eagles. First time they've ever beat them on Thursday Night Football. They were 0-3 against the Eagles, their first Thursday night win since 2015. We know about their failures in Primetime. They were 3-21 going into the game since 2018. But I love what Cam Skattebo and Jaxson Dart said after the game. They're like, hey, look, we hear the negativity. There's a lot of negativity. But at the end of the day, we weren't here for any of that. This is all new. And that's youth and leadership and an influx of a new energy brought to this football team, and we saw it on display last night.
Yeah, and I think what makes that so special is that they're not part of a status quo. And I think it's going to take a little time for the fans to really adapt that, and they should be in a posture of show me better than you can tell me. But I think those two kids and everything around them is all about, I can show you better than I can tell you. So just hang on. We're giving you something that we believe we can impact, not something that has happened in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about this game, right? The Giants, for the first time since 2009, have scored a touchdown on their first possession in 3 straight games. That's a long time. And Jaxson Dart, since 1991, joins Patrick Mahomes as the only quarterbacks to start 3 consecutive games with first possession scoring drives of touchdowns. I mean, it's Mahomes and Dart since 1991, the only 2 guys to do it. And the first touchdown, Carl, it comes on a 3rd and 8. And the way Jaxson Dart was able to use his legs in this football game to buy time in the pocket, even on the Wan'Dale Robinson touchdown, his legs kept that play alive. That would be a sack most of the time.
Yeah,
so
it really would.
Yeah, really refreshing. Go ahead.
No, so, there's kind of a lot to unpack in terms of the process of, what the Giants have in terms of their players. And this is not a kind of gotcha statement, but more of a understanding for fans of, why players are picked and the preference that front offices and coaches have for the types of players that they want, because, every year around the draft, you get these rankings, right? And there's nothing wrong with the rankings, but it still comes down to a preference of what player fits within a particular schematic. So when you start to evaluate players or prospects, none of those evaluations are necessarily wrong. It's just a matter of, what does that team look for and what fits their system? And this goes to a larger point that we'll get into is, what type of team are you? What type of scheme are you? What type of players do you have in terms of supporting cast? Will we have to do more for a young player to have success? And that's just not a quarterback, but that's the most important position, where you bring a guy in and you say, well, we're going to have, he's this type of player. His talent is undeniable, but do we have the players to give him the best chance to succeed right away? And I think, when, people who have quarterbacks ranked a certain way, they rank those players based on what they were coming out of college. They don't necessarily look at what coaches want or what their preferences are. And sometimes I think it's important to, those people who rank those players coming out to sometimes talk to the coaches and talk to the front offices about what their preferences are. What are your plans? If you draft a quarterback, what is the ideal guy you like and why you like him for what you like to do? And so, you have guys like Cliff Kingsbury, right? Um, he takes a certain type of quarterback because his style of offense is different than, say Tennessee or Cleveland or even New York. But you have to have the type of guy that fits what you like to do. And when that happens, a lot of things come into consideration, right? So, yes, if you're in a win now mode, then you're going to take a guy that you can put in that can have success right away, that you can scheme success right away for, but you also got to look at the rest of the roster, right? And then you say, okay, he may not be able to have the success that we need right now to, have success as a team. So, Jaxson Dart is who Coach Dable wanted. He's who Joe Shane agreed that they should have. He's far from, a finished product, but you can see the things that they're asking him to do fits within what they want and what he's capable of. And it's not, I don't want to say dependent on supporting cast, because every quarterback needs a supporting cast.
Of course.
But you don't necessarily look at this and say, well, he doesn't have a number one receiver, so he can't have success. But when you look at the scheme and how they try to do things, and then you look at the personnel, they invested a lot in talent at the tight end position. I'm not saying money-wise, but skill set-wise. You look at the skill sets of the tight ends on the Giants roster. You look at the skill sets of the running backs. Every running back, and this is something that Coach Dable has been on record as saying, is that he needs running backs who can actually catch the football because they're a part of what they like to do. That tells you that it is not a wide receiver dependent, meaning top dog wide receiver dependent to have any level of success. Obviously, a top dog wide receiver just takes you over the top, and that's what Malik Neighbors is. But you lose Malik Neighbors, and you got a supporting cast who can do the things that the offense requires, meaning they have backs who can catch out of the backfield. They're not a drive it down the field, take the top off of a defense style, even though, Dable loves driving the ball down the field, but he also wants to have things that keeps them in manageable down and distance. And that means a quarterback who can, create on his own, a quarterback who, if things break down, he can keep the train on schedule by getting a first down, scrambling for 5 to 8 yards, if not more. And so that's why we see Jaxson Dart out there now sooner than later, because he has, number one, he has the football IQ, the mental capacity to execute what they're asking him to do. And the way he's operating the offense is something that we should take note of. But it's also something that we should take note of when it comes to Kafka and with Coach Dable. Now, they're only won 2 games, but you see what they're trying to accomplish. And you give athletes credit because coming into Thursday night, the narrative, and listen, the narrative wasn't far off based on what we saw in New Orleans. The narrative was the wide receivers were ass. And that, and you and I both said that that's not going to change unless these guys step up and take the challenge of saying, disproving that narrative. And I think they did that yesterday.
Well, look, we talked about, we were shocked that Little Jordan Humphrey wasn't elevated when Neighbors went down. Obviously, you saw what he could do last night. Is he a world beater? No, but he's a physical receiver who can make contested catches. He's had a good career, and he made some key plays in this game. Not only did he catch that 34-yarder on a third down heave, it was like, hey, let me throw this up there, let my guy box him out, and I got confidence that this guy's going to go catch the ball, high point it, even though I hate that phrase, high point, go up there with my hands and secure that football. And then he makes an incredible block on Wan'Dale Robinson's catch and run for a touchdown. And I think, look, you see what Jaxson Dart brings. Charlie Weiss told us about this before the Giants even drafted him, and then once the Giants drafted him on this show. He brings leadership. He's got that Pied Piper kind of Baker Mayfield, people gravitate toward him. That was his MO in college. Is he a finished product? No. But you know what he did, Carl? I was looking at, you and I looked at the coach's tape from last week's game. And, you know, in fact, I talked to somebody who's a huge fan of the Giants. And they said, man, they coached so much better this week. They had such a better game plan. And I said, you didn't watch the coach's tape last week because there were people open everywhere. But Jaxson Dart, as a guy making a second start, didn't see things that were available. They had chances last week against New Orleans to have many, many big plays. But you know what he did last night when I watched the tape this morning? He saw things better. He was a little bit more patient. There was a play he hit a slant. His first read, he had the one-on-one to his left. But the one-on-one wasn't there. He reshuffled his feet. And, you know, Matt Sims and I talked about it this morning during one of our commercial breaks. He reshuffled his feet, set, and he had the in cut. Boom. Much more decisive in this game. And that's what you want to see. You want to see players get better, right? And
that's called growth. Yes.
Growth. And now build upon it in the next game, you know, and, you know, you're going to be going against another tough defense in Denver. Not a preview show right now. But even the, you know, the energy that he brings. Look, I know fans were like so upset when Russell Wilson came in there last night and he threw that ball to like Lord knows where. And the Giant fans have Russell Wilson post-traumatic syndrome, you know, based on the way he had played it in the Kansas City situation down there in the red zone. But look, Carl. Russell Wilson is a borderline Hall of Famer and went to 2 Super Bowls because for the first 10 years of his career, he did what now Jaxson Dart can do and he can't do anymore. How many plays did Dart keep alive last night? You know, even an incompletion to Wan'Dale Robinson, that would have been a sack normally. And then you throw the Skattebo mix and the fact that they're best buds and everything. It's like watching a new TV show. It's fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, the unsung heroes of this game, and, you know, especially on the offensive side of the football, the thing that makes it all work is the offensive line.
Andrew Thomas being back is big.
Andrew Thomas being back is big. But you know whose name we're not calling a lot as a guy who's getting run over and who's getting, you know, is the reason why there are sacks and tackles for loss? John Michael Schmitz. He's accepted the challenge and the reality that he had to get better. You credit his coaching, Carmen Brasillo, and getting their offensive line coordinated and all on the same page. He goes out, his replacement comes in, they really don't miss a beat, you know? And that just tells you that this team is working hard. And again, we're not looking at a team that's on a road to a Super Bowl. We're looking at a team that's putting the pieces in place that will give them a chance to win every game. If they do the correct things. They took care of the football yesterday. the penalties were very minimal. I think it was 5 on the game and 3 on the defense, if I can recall. So that's winning football. Guys who are willing to play above the X's and O's is what makes a difference in a game against Philadelphia. And, I'm not going to tell you Philadelphia quit, but the Giants didn't make it easy for them to come back in the game.
No,
because
while you were doing TV, Tiki said on the Giants' physicality in the fourth quarter, especially after the fumble by Philadelphia, he said, as a running back, he said, I can feel them letting go of the rope because they were getting pounded. Even Dart was finishing his runs. Skattebo on the little catch. The pounding broke the Eagles' will. And listen, if you're a Giant fan, you haven't heard a Giant announcer say that probably since 2011 and Victor Cruz started salsaing.
Yeah.
So, like last night was mind-blowing of how awesome it was on every different level because they have bullied the Giants since 2008.
Yeah, and listen, this is a group that they don't walk into a game fearing. They don't walk into a game experiencing past trauma that had nothing to do with them. And I'll give you a case in point. Cam Skattebo on a run on the sideline, he gets a couple good blocks. But you got an all-pro linebacker who goes to tackle him, and Skattebo depleted him, tossed him out of the club. And when the Eagles put that on, that's a pretty good linebacker that he bowled over. Not even bowled over. He depleted him, sent him 3 yards in the air. The Eagles put that on. They're going to give credit where it's due, and this is where people say, well, he can't keep taking these hits. He runs. He's delivering more so than he's taking. And that's a big difference. And I can tell you that it does impact your defense. I played against a guy before he was my teammate. His name is Otis Anderson, right? You knew that you might want to get about 4 guys around him because one-on-one, you're probably it's a high percentage that you're going to absorb more than he does because he was just that guy. That's Cam Skattebo. I mean, you can not like his style, and you think he's taking too many hits. He's initiating most of the contact, and when you have that, you don't worry about it. The one I worry about, who's a little more fearless than I would like for him to be because he's too valuable to their offense, is the quarterback. But he's fearless too. It's just who he is.
He's going to get fined a lot of money for leading with his head when he dove to the sideline. I mean, he initiated contact with his head. He's going to get fined. He didn't get flagged for it on the play. Chris Bizignano, the Biz, he agrees. He said they were cooked in the fourth quarter and wanted no more of Skattebo. You mentioned John Michael Schmitz, and you mentioned Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach. Mm-hmm. You cannot get through this podcast without, we have to give a shout out to Austin Schlottman.
Yep.
Because when John Michael Schmitz went out of the game and he had the towel on his nose, he was evaluated for a concussion, did not come back in the ball game. How many times have we watched NFL games where the backup center comes in, you get a bad snap, suddenly he becomes the weakest link, and suddenly it's like a jailbreak because Philadelphia was like, okay, Schmitz is out of the game. Let's go after the weak link here. And it's not like the Giants really missed a beat with what they were doing, whether it was running the ball or pass protecting. So kudos to Schlottman and kudos for the offensive line coach for having that player ready. Because the feeling was, all right, are they going to move Van Roten over, put Stinney in at right guard? They said, you know what? Why not? Let's not weaken 2 spots. We trust Schlottman to come in and fill the role, and he did a really good job of that.
Yeah, and that speaks to not just coaching, Bob, but preparation. Players preparing. And we've seen both sides of the ball, just like Bo Collins last week, not running through his route, allowing an interception to happen, or getting jammed and not getting off of it. They came in, and this again, people, this is what pro athletes should be doing. They should be getting better from week to week and not repeating the same mistakes. And, you see that on both sides of the football. And when we look at the defense, right? There was a lot of talk about the percentage of man-to-man defense that Shane Bowen plays, and that Jalen Hurts was going to carve them up because the Giants don't play a lot of zone. And so I reached out to Scott Barrett because he does a really good job of charting this stuff. But he and Nick Filato and Dan Schneider were, they were having this dialogue earlier this week. And, it really got me juiced because it's, the type of ball talk I like. So I reached out to him and I said, man, zone, disguise, blitz, coverages. Can you give me an idea of what was different or what was the same, from last week to this week? Because, people thought, hey, well, the Giants, play a certain style and they just don't adapt. Shane Bowen doesn't adapt. And so I asked him to just kind of give me an idea of what that was, because, people were saying, well, the Giants are going to, get carved up because they don't play zone enough. They play too much man. And so he sent me a chart, and surprisingly enough, they played 62% zone last week. This week, they played 60% zone defense. So contrary to what, we think Shane Bowen is doing, and because a quarterback gave an observation, I don't think he was taking a shot, meaning last week, but everybody took it as though the defensive coordinator just doesn't have any diversity in their schematics. This week they played 38% man-to-man coverage, right? 60% zone. They were single high 47% of the time. They played two-man 52% of the time. So they're doing a lot. Here's the diversity of what they do. Cover 0 was 10% this week. Cover 1 was 26%. Cover 2 was 15%. Cover 2 man, they didn't play any of it. 21%. Cover 3, cover 4, 23%. So they played a lot of different looks against Jalen Hurts. And, so people say, well, they don't do a lot. The week before, cover 1, 18% of the time, 18% of the time. Cover 2, 15% of the time. Two men, they only played it 3%, but cover 3, they played it 15%. Cover 4, they played it 28%. And cover 6, they played it 3%. So they are doing a lot of things differently than what people are saying from this coordinator. But what I had said last week, and we don't discount opportunities made against or opportunities missed. But I said this defense looks a lot different, and people would think it's a much different defense if they capitalize on their opportunities. They got two turnovers yesterday. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They got 2 turnovers. First interception of the year. They sent some pressure on that one. Shane Bowen broke from some tendencies in this game in the sense that they didn't blitz nearly as much, about half the amount than what they would on average. Mm-hmm. But they dialed it up at the right time. And, here's another thing where stats are misleading. if you look at the stat sheet, the official NFL game book, there's no stat for Abdul Carter. But I guarantee you, when the Philadelphia Eagles are reviewing the game film, he had a real impact on this game because they had to pay attention to him, and it opened things up for Abdul Carter. And then, Cor'Dale Flott. Look, did Jalen Hurts is so risk adverse as far as the way he wants to run his offense, and Phil Simms has talked about it on the Sims Complete podcast. He's going to take his first read for the most part, unless he gets flushed out. And even on that interception, man, he has A.J. Brown up the middle. Could have easily been 6. Ball flutters out there. And I give Cor'Dale Flott a lot of credit because he's taken a lot of arrows, and he played it perfectly. Didn't drop it. Giant fans, how many dropped interceptions have we seen this year? A lot. So
it would have been, they would lead the league, Bob, in interceptions. They have legitimately 9 interception tries. They've only come up with 3, but I'm talking about legitimately in the hands type interceptions. So, yeah, I mean, the defense looks a lot different when the opportunities are taken advantage of. And, so when people say, well, this defense is bland, it's vanilla, I will go back to the same point I made about Jaxson Dart and how he fits with what they want to do. You've got to have a defense that benefits all your players and something that everybody can play that doesn't leave you vulnerable. And you ask yourself, what type of team are we? What can we do well? And if you can do those things well and you still create turnover opportunities and you make those opportunities, you're singing a different tune about Shane Bowen. But when you're missing those opportunities and you're giving up a big play, you say, defensive coordinator is not that good. Well, sometimes, like I said, folks, it's user error in these situations. And I credit these young men with being the pros that they are and correcting those things. They're not making the same mistakes week after week. Dane Belton, I've never doubted his ability to play physical and his ability to tackle. But assignment football has plagued him at times because when they put him in, he's not in the Florida game. Well, he was in the Florida game yesterday. He caused a big turnover for this team, made some good tackles. We talked about bad angles in tackling. We didn't see a lot of those. We knew Saquon Barkley would be Saquon Barkley. He was that for 2 plays. After that, it was tough sledding for him. They averaged under 4 yards rushing a game. That's good defense, So, yeah, they gave up a couple. He had an 18-yarder, and I think he had 30 yards on 2 plays. After that, it was tough sledding for him. They got everything under control. Gap responsibilities, guys getting off blocks and making tackles. So, whatever you think about a defensive coordinator and what you would like to see, right? He's doing what his personnel allows them to do, and he's coaching that personnel to be good at that. And when you do that and you see the opportunities missed, that's not a scheme issue. That's a player issue. And to their credit, they're executing. They're doing a much better job. And that's why they're not repeating mistakes each and every week.
I'm just taking a look at here some of the comments. Hey, look, this game too. Here's the thing about this game. For years, the Giants, they make a mistake and they pay for it. And it flips games. And to me, this game flipped right in the early part of the third quarter because the Giants did a really good job of keeping. There were a lot of Eagles fans in the stands, and that was understandable. You knew that was coming. But the Giant fans were able to keep the Eagles fans out of it because of the way the Giants were playing and the fact that the Giants had a lead at half. So now you get the ball to start the third, and Theo Johnson would sing his praises. We'll be honest. You got to catch that ball on a 3rd and 4, hit him right in the chest. got to catch it, drops it. Giants punt, good special teams. They're facing a 3rd and 11 or whatever it was. And the Giants completely blew a coverage. Should have been an 89-yard touchdown pass. But you know what? For once, it went the Giants' way. You know, in the past, that pass gets hit. And when the Giants have that opportunity, flea flicker in Germany, pick any one of them. The deep post last week in New Orleans, you know, the Giants are the ones that don't make the play, and it winds up flipping the game. This time it worked in their favor. This time they got a break and then seized the opportunity of it. And I think about if you're a Giant fan going to the game and how miserable the home record's been. I mean, what was their home record last year? They were 1-8 last year. They had an extra home game, so you had insult to injury. They only won 1 out of the 9 they had. And the last 2 games you've gone to, you watch the Giants go wire to wire against a 3-0 team, the Chargers. And then the last night was awesome because the team scores early, the team scores again, and now you didn't hear the EAGLES chants in MetLife Stadium, and it kept the fans engaged. It was like a playoff atmosphere last night.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, I call it Giant Stadium because that's what it feels like when these fans are totally engaged. It's the old Giant Stadium. That's the energy that this team feels. I mean, listen, after the punt and after Theo Johnson, this was 2 series later, the Giants had them backed up. And I'm looking at Dexter and I'm looking at Kayvon urging the crowd, you know, just to make noise. They were backed up. And that I can remember like yesterday was the same thing we would do when we're having that type of game and we wanted the crowd to get into it when we had a team backed up. And that feeling felt so great. Just watching it and feeling it and reminiscing on that's Giant Stadium football. That's Giant football. That's when your fans are in it. That's when your fans feel like they're a part of it and not being victimized by bad play. And I think that is that is and should be the standard for what you do when you're at home. Again, it won't always be perfect, but you're seeing the things put in place in a foundation that will allow them to win their share of games. And look, again, the schedule came out. They had this one circled as a loss. I don't want to hear from anybody about what the Eagles didn't have. You play who they do have, just like they play who you have. So don't tell me that, you know, Jalen Carter was out of the game. It would have been different. Well, it was different, right? They had both their wide receivers. They had Dallas Goedert. They had the quarterback. They had Saquon Barkley. Their entire defense was ready, right? You went out and you won the game. So when you circled the loss, take the victory. It's an L for you who thought they were losing. We're going to lose this game. But like I said, the schedule is on paper until they play it. And it's who you play at the time you play them. And, you know, it's life in the NFL. You're going to be down players. Every team is down players. It's who you play when you play them.
Yes, I don't want to hear any more about the qualifying about, Jalen Carter didn't play. Quinyon Mitchell went out of the game. Yeah, no neighbors. And by the way, when the Eagles have been kicking the Giants' butt over the last 5 years.
When they had a shitty offensive line. Yeah.
Well, did anybody qualify those wins that Saquon Barkley was out for the year with an injury, or Daniel Jones was out with a neck injury, or Andrew Thomas was out for most of the year, and so on and so on? So I don't want to hear any of this. Yeah, but, you know, they didn't have. I don't give a crap, because no one says when the Eagles are leaving MetLife Stadium over the last 10 years, they're fans and they're pointing fingers in your face and talking, you know, making fun of you. They're not saying, yeah, but I know you didn't have these people. So screw it. Tough. Yeah. Dude in a bad mood. Special teams has been amazing. Yes. Now they did miss an extra point, and it wasn't crazy, you know, and Gillen screwed up the opening kickoff. But with that said, Oshesky's been really good on the returns. Fielding punts has been very good. Covering punts, covering kicks have created field position for the Giants in the last couple of weeks. So, yes, the special teams, again, they're not one of the more powerful teams in the NFL. So all three phases have to be working together, and it certainly has been a plus for them. Carl, Trey
Think about
had a
the
question.
kickoffs. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Okay.
No. It's a different point.
Before we go to Trey, Tiki made the point on the post game about players trying to field kicks from Jamie Gillan. It's a different spin on the ball. We saw 2 balls go right through the hands of returners from Philadelphia. One goes into the end zone, the other one hits and goes out of bounds because it's a different looking kick coming off of his foot.
Yeah, it's definitely got a different spin to it. It's not the normal rotation of a normal kickoff, right? The way he's hitting it. And I talked to him the other day, and I think it was the days are all running together. I think it was Wednesday, but maybe it was yesterday. And I was chatting with him about it a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, we got to just kind of keep it going." But yeah, we found a little something here, and it's proven to be a weapon for them. Trey wanted to comment on Flott's turnaround, and Shane needs to get a couple of these guys re-signed. Look, Carl, I think you and I are thinking from the same brain on this one. Cor'Dale Flott, I've always liked Cor'Dale Flott as a player. Cor'Dale Flott's problem has been his ability to stay healthy. And we've always talked about that. Like, he's had a stretch of games where he stacks them, and and it's good, and you're getting more and more excited, and then he's going to miss 2 games because he's not a big dude. He's a small guy. He's almost got like a basketball player body to him.
Right.
And I don't think it's ever been about his ability. I think it's more about his availability. And, you know, that's so let's not worry about signing people just yet or re-signing people. Let's let this play out.
But if we were to just speak on it briefly, they now have players worth signing. They have talent worth retaining. Not to say that obviously there's some really good players that left this team and went to other teams doing really well. And for whatever reasons they are gone, whether it were salary cap limitations and not being able to balance your books if you kept some of these guys, and whatever that is, we're seeing a roster that's got a little more balance to it. You've got guys who need to be under contract that are under contract, and others that you need to keep because they're quality football players. So, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But Cor'Dale Flott, I commented during training camp that, even during the offseason, because I was rehabbing my torn tricep and I saw him around the building a lot, just had a different focus to him, and that's maturity. And, players kind of spend their alone time thinking about their careers and, what can and can't be. And you give the kid credit because his focus has been there from day one. And I think focus on being healthy has also been something that he knew that if he could stay healthy, he could help his football team.
Another guy, Jalin Hyatt. Look, he had his first catches of the year. I mean, it's been a massive disappointment since he was drafted. He doesn't have a touchdown yet, but staying in it and taking advantage of a chance. I mean, his very first catch of the year comes on a 3rd down. It's a hands catch. It's contested. And a stutter go creates a pass interference in the end zone that creates another score for the Giants. Look, I don't know what kind of player he's going to eventually be or will be. I mean, we're in year number 3. But at least for one night, man, you give the kid credit. He stuck with it. And you know what? Sometimes, it's like in golf when you see these guys in tournaments and it feels like they make one putt and then they can't miss. And they start going in bunches. Scotty Scheffler for the past 2 years. Maybe with Jalin Hyatt, it opens it up for a little. It frees him up just a little bit. I'm not going to say he's going to become a Pro Bowl wide receiver, but maybe he becomes a more consistent contributor, which will only make the group better with no neighbors there.
Correct. And so I think with Jalin, it's been a matter of opportunity for him. He got his chances. He made the most of them. He impacted the game on 3 different plays. But, you take a guy, and here's why I have confidence that the more Jalin Hyatt gets opportunities, the better he's going to contribute to this offense, because he's a Bolitnikov wide receiver coming out of college. That means he's the best wide receiver coming out, or one of the best. But the one thing that has held him in good stead, in my opinion, my view, and I see him a lot and I talk to him, he has never lost his confidence. He knows he's going through it. He knows what's being said about him. Certain things he cannot control if he's not on the field. So he gets his opportunity, go on the field, and you could see the reaction of his teammates. That big first down that he caught, contested, hands catch, gets the first down. The amount of guys that were over there patting him on the head because they believe in him. And they know what he can do. And so the opportunities, when they get to him, and he'll start to feel better about playing in the flow of a game, but like coming in, running a route, going back out and sitting back and watching the rest of the game, as opposed to being in there and having plays called and being the primary receiver and coming up big in those situations. He's got his touchdown if he didn't get interfered with. But what it did, it moved the ball to the 1-yard line and they punched it in. So I give him an assist on that. Just like we talked about Abdul Carter not statting at all in the game. But if you ask Brian Burns, how did you get to the quarterback so fast? He's going to tell you because Abdul Carter pitched a no-hitter. Nobody touched him coming through, and they couldn't even switch on the twist. I mean, they both hit it like lightning, and Abdul Carter split 2 guys, and they both could not react to Brian Burns. He did that quite a bit. So his numbers are going to start to come as well. A guy who didn't stat. Go ahead.
No, I guarantee you, Jeff Stoutland, the great offensive line coach of the Eagles, knowing that after they play Minnesota and after the Giants play Denver in their next games, they play each other again. I guarantee you, Jeff Stoutland, part of what's going to be on his board is how to deal with Abdul Carter, despite the fact that he had no stats from last night.
Correct. Another guy who didn't stat well, but impacted the game defensively was Kayvon Thibodeau.
5. He's
tackles
been
for
outstanding
loss
this year.
He's been outstanding. I mean, just from a complete player standpoint, both run and pass, he's been outstanding. But it didn't stat a lot, but man, he contributed greatly. He continues to make tackles on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He continues to defeat offensive linemen who outweigh him 40 pounds. I mean, his handwork is just phenomenal. The ability of him using his hands has just been phenomenal. And then, look, we talk about the success of this defense. And people are like, well, the Giants are leading the league, top of the league, in forcing teams in 3rd and longs. 1st and 2nd down, they've been outstanding. Think about the Dallas game. Every 3rd down, they were letting them off the hook because they were committing a penalty. Then, you would play good on 1st and 2nd down, and then, they just weren't getting off the field, but they were holding teams to field goals. This week, and this is what we call growth, people, because they look at themselves, they self-scout, and they say, and this is Shane Bowen too, saying, well, maybe I got to put him in something that will allow us to get off the field on 3rd downs when we're playing so good on 1st and 2nd down. 1 for 9 on 3rd down, Philadelphia. 1 for 9 when you got Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Javonte Smith. 1 for 9, folks. That's good defense. Say what you want about Shane Bowen. Say what you want about his scheme. Against those 4 players, they were one, and a quarterback who has the ability to get conversions himself. And I think he got the only first down, didn't he? Or was it Goddard that got it?
No, it was Goddard. The only third down they hit was a 3rd and 7. They were 1 for 4 between 5 and 8 yards. They were 0 for 1 from 3 yards. They failed on the 3rd and 1 tush push, and they were 0 for 3 on third downs of 9+. So it was Goddard was the only one.
Yeah, that's good defense. Yeah, teams are going to hit some plays on you. But if you can keep an offense like that off the field and not let them extend drives by playing good third down defense, you played a hell of a game. That's a winning game plan. Again, they executed. That's the difference between this week and last week. They executed 99% of the time. Last week, they gave up 1 play. This week, Philly missed that 1 play, and the rest, they took care of themselves.
I want to comment, John Mara, when we started this podcast, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes into it, issued a statement. We'll address it. But first, delete me. It makes it quick and easy for you to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Now, there's these guys out there, these things out there called data brokers, and they make a profit off your data. It's really a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. Identity theft, phishing attempts, harassment. Now protect your privacy with Delete Me. Hey, your name, contact info, social security, home address, even information about your family members. The New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. Now, Carl, you and I both have online presences. We want to protect our information. There's identity theft, there's harassment, doxing, and you probably know someone who has had this happen to them. Delete Me is your answer. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, you get 20% off Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/pro. Use the promo code PRO, P-R-O, at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is go to joindeleteme.com/pro. Enter the code PRO at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/pro. Promo code PRO. So Jaxson Dart running with the ball, gets hit. His chin comes down on one of the Eagles players' knees. He's down. He's slow to get up. Obviously, he's going to go into the concussion protocol. Now, we saw on TV, Dable apologize afterwards. Dr. Scott Rodeo, the chief orthopedic surgeon for the Giants from Hospitals for Special Surgery, standing there. Look, when it gets buzzed down and you go into concussion protocol, there's independent observers down there. The team doctors are not handling it. Dable's a little panicked. He's getting heated with the doctor, like, hey, I want to use him. Walks over near the tent. Skattebo goes in the tent. Probably you shouldn't do any of that stuff. It looked a little bit desperate. It was a bad look. And, you know, John Mara is on the NFL's competition committee, and he takes this stuff serious. He's on a zillion committees, and he's been on the competition committee for a really long time. So a statement was issued by the New York Giants. I'm going to get that statement up because Lindsay sent it to me, and I want to read it to you verbatim. And it was this from John Mara. Because it was announced earlier, Tom Pelissero reported that the league and the NFLPA were going to do a joint investigation. I spoke with Coach Dable this morning about approaching the medical tent last night. Well, I firmly believe, as he has stated, that he was not trying to influence the process in any way. He understands that the appearance of going to the tent is inappropriate. We have protocols in place as a league to ensure player safety, and we need to allow our medical staff to execute those protocols without interference. We understand the situation is under review by the NFL and the NFLPA, and obviously we will cooperate fully. Wasn't the best look. you just got to. You got to stay away, man. You can't, and
Yeah.
Skattebo can't be going in there. I know he's your buddy and all that other stuff, but man, this is the NFL. It's about appearances. It's about player safety, and we're talking about. It's one thing if a guy like hurts his ankle or hurts his knee, and a teammate goes to check on him. But when it's a head injury, man, just stay away. Let the process happen.
Right, and it's not uncommon for coaches to scream at trainers on the sideline, but that's one of those deals. If it's an ankle, he's not secluded. He's not mandatory. It's not in mandatory isolation for independent people to watch it, to evaluate. But you'll see a coach scream at a trainer, "Can he go? What's wrong with him? I need him back out there." And the trainer says like he can't go. And you'll see that sometimes, but that's different than when it's beyond the control of anybody on your staff. The people on your medical staff are not at the mercy, but they're waiting in queue just like you to find out what the status is of that player, and they're only going to get guidance from the independent observer or independent medical people that are evaluating your player, and they're going to give the guidance to the team doctors, and the team doctors will give that to the head coach, and there's nothing anybody can do to influence that. So yeah, I mean, if you're screaming at the medical staff and it's a heat of the moment thing clearly, but there's nothing that those people can do to impact whether or not your player is going to get back on the field. So Dable knew it was a mistake, but and I'm sure the medical observers, the independent guys are probably they're not going to take kindly to being screamed at on the other side of a tent, but and the coach is probably going to get fined for it, but he understood that there was nothing he could do. But he was in the listen, he had just watched a ball get thrown errantly, and he's probably like, "Oh, I got to get my guy back in here. Can somebody give me some information right away? What the hell is going on?"
You mean like in 1990 in Candlestick Park when Hostetler got knocked out of the game and Matt Cavanaugh came in and he threw that pass? I think it's still
into the front row.
Yeah, I think it's still circling the globe's Earth's orbit. He threw it so high, it threw the back of the end zone, and it was like, all right, get Hostetler back in the game. Now, it's interesting because the league has changed. In today's NFL, I'm not sure if Jeff Hostetler gets back in that game, like with the way things have changed. But yeah, I mean, it was heated. It was one of those things. Look, I think William Henry asked Lil Jordan Humphrey needs to stay on this roster. Look, I'm sure he's going to continue to be elevated. You get 3 moves before you have to sign the guy, so you can do a little bit of roster juggling. No harm, no foul. Here's the other thing you need to know. Yes, 31 other teams can sign a player off of a team's practice squad. So if you're thinking, if we revert him back to the practice squad, what if somebody comes in and wants to sign him to the active roster? The player has the right to decline that. And sometimes the team can make it worth your while financially for you to decline that. And my guess is if that situation arose, he would A, elect to stay, and B, the Giants would make it worth his while, and they do a little roster juggling until they have to make a permanent move. Hey, maybe they'll make the permanent move now. They're going to play Denver. Sean Payton loved Lil Jordan Humphrey. It was a player that he wanted to keep, but they couldn't because of numbers and stuff like that and some younger players. But he's going to be a part of the Giants, I believe, for the rest of the season because they need somebody that does not want to catch the ball like this, but wants to catch it like this in traffic.
And Wainwright, let me see. Dennis Wainwright spoke about the type of quarterback that the Giants have who can extend plays, drop back in the pocket, and he's got the right mental makeup is truly what this offense calls for. But the fact that he gave Lil Jordan Humphrey the opportunity to make that play the way he made it tells you about his IQ, because he could have drilled it down there, but he knew the receiver he was about to throw the ball to could body the smaller defensive back. And he says, I'm going to put it up here and let him go and box out and grab this rebound. And I said during the game that Charles Oakley was on the Giants sidelines pre-game. And I said, that probably made him proud, because, I mean, he bodied his guy out and just went up and got it. But that's also situational awareness by your quarterback, and knowing the type of receiver. He wouldn't have thrown the ball like that if it were Wan'Dale Robinson, right? But you give a 50-50 chance to somebody who's, 4 inches taller than the guy who's guarding him, to put the ball where it's easily attainable by the defender is a disadvantage to a guy like Lil Jordan Humphrey. You want to give him the advantage of using his length and his size, body size, to box out the smaller defender.
So I've talked to some people this morning that are fans but played in the league, but they're Giants fans, and they're a little frustrated by Russell Wilson. You just got to trade him. First of all, who necessarily is going to trade for him at this point? Giants 2025 wants to know what Hyatt was doing on that play with Russell. Clearly, there was miscommunication to wherever he thought he was going. And look, it looked like a train wreck. Okay, you can't sugarcoat any of this. And some are asking, well, why don't you make Jameis Winston the backup? And it was a point that you made on this podcast when the move was made to Jaxson Dart that Russell Wilson still is very well respected in that locker room, in that quarterback meeting room, and has really done a good job as far as being a mentor and still being a leader with not just the quarterback room, but with the receivers and everybody else. So I think there's a value that he brings. And I don't think that they're going to say, all of a sudden, Jameis, you're number 2, and Russell Wilson, you're number 3. I don't feel like that it's going to happen.
And listen,
I mean, you're deathly afraid based on what you saw of Russell Wilson.
It's a bad play. It was a bad play. And then in Kansas City, it didn't look good either. I think that Russell Wilson, if he's got to come in and hold the rope, just based on what your defense can do, I think they would call a game that would fit whatever he can do at this stage. If you got your defense humming and you up by 3 scores, right, and he's in the game, I believe that whatever he has, whatever he can do well, I believe that they would call a game for him to play not to lose it, because he's still a smart quarterback. He still can do some things. But if he's in there for more than one play, I would think the adjustment from the coaching staff would be the same as when they do it in beginning of the week preparations. What do we have? What can we do with this guy? What can he do well? And they know that going into the game. So that it counts as one incompletion, no matter how ugly it was. But if he's got to go in there and finish out the game for a quarter, I would think they would call a game that would be favorable to whatever his skill set is today. And I think he can still do some things well. Dallas, he lit Dallas up, and Dallas had bad defensive backs. Yeah, well, that he did what he was supposed to do. And I think that if he had to be in there to finish the game, he would have done what he needed to do, not to lose the game. They would have called a an offense that would have fit, what he could do well at this point.
Yeah, man. I let's just knock on wood. Like, we don't get to that point where we have to worry about multiple games or anything. Dart does play with this reckless abandon and everything else, but they'll make the appropriate decision at that time. I mean, remember, Jameis Winston's the same guy that after a game last year talked about praying to the God to eliminate the pick sixes. So I think you got to just be careful with all this. Jaxson Dart's got to be a little bit smarter with how he handles himself, as far as some of the recklessness out there. And if they feel that it is a dire situation, they will make a move at some point. But I think for now, I'm not really sure that they would make that switch from 1 to 2 between the players. And again, there's a lot of the other dynamic is that room that they put a high premium on as far as leadership within the room and sort of the way the whole thing breaks down and the mentoring that's going on. So again, we're not in the meeting room, so I don't know, but I don't want to really get bogged down on number 2 talk right now. So Carl, the fans have been great weighing in on this. I want to ask you this question. Do you feel like this is a turning point, culture type changing win? Or are you of the former player mindset that, it feels culture changing to beat these guys, especially who have just, who have just owned us forever.
Yeah.
But you also got to be careful because it really is a week to week proposition.
It's a week to week proposition. Tiki and I spoke briefly. He was on his way down to get on the mic, and I was on my way out, and he and John Schmelk were talking, and I heard him oversay it, and I couldn't echo it any better. The NFL season is a marathon. You're just in the first quarter of it. You want to talk about the beginning of something or culture changing. By the time you see it as a general public, those things have been in place, and they're just now coming together. That's why each week I try to tell, fans, and I know it's sometimes hard for them to see it when I'm talking about it, but the little things that are starting to come together for this team. And then you see a win against Philadelphia. It wasn't a fluke. Philly didn't lay down. The Giants beat them. Because all of those little things that they look at in the team meetings and say, we got to get rid of this. We got to do this better. We got to catch that. You missed this. You got to make this throw. So by the time the general public sees it all come together, it had been coming together weeks in advance. It's just in the things that you have to look for when you talk about culture change, right? The overt things that happen is from week to week, what didn't they repeat? Because remember, after week 1, everybody was triggered to talk about how stale the offense was in the red zone. They couldn't score points. They couldn't get touchdowns. That narrative, have you heard it since? They're scoring in the red zone. They're scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And so that means that they're working on these things. That means that they're trying to figure out how to get those things accomplished as well. And that's the part of culture change. When
But Carl, just to follow up on that point, but don't you also think that a big part of it is just the quarterback is seeing things quicker and his legs give them an ability?
Yes.
Yeah. What I mean is, they were working on it beforehand, but it's still, they weren't getting what the quarterback is a big factor in all this, right?
But that's, of course, that's part of the change. The head coach made the change at quarterback to impact or to affect change, right? So if things weren't getting better, he says, I got to change this. He felt that change would be part of the process of the evolution of progress for this team because you're seeing so many other things in place and you're not getting what you need at the quarterback position, or you think you can get more from the quarterback position, so you change it. So those are all the things, like the little things that you see in place, and then you put one big thing, one big change in place, and it starts to look different, right? And again, nobody, as of Wednesday, nobody legitimately thought that the Giants would go out and play like they did against Philadelphia. They were hoping, in our conversations with many fans, they were hoping that they didn't get embarrassed. They were hoping that Philadelphia didn't come into the stadium and just make a laughing stock of this team, that they could at least keep it competitive.
Yeah, I thought
They
they'd
put up
play
30
well, but
points.
I didn't see that.
They put up 30-something points. But I said to you in the pregame, if you don't play scared, you'll go out and you'll compete. And I think that's what they did. They did not take on the public narrative or the public sentiment that Philly's too good and we're too bad and we don't have a chance. I say you go out and compete, you give yourself a chance. And then you do all the little things that were preventing you from winning games, because you had to play well against Philly, because Philly was a fourth quarter team. The reason Philly wasn't a fourth quarter team last night is because for 3 quarters plus, the Giants never took their foot off the gas on either side of the ball and on special teams. And Philly normally are the ones who beat you into submission. The Giants were not going away. They just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. So Philly never had any breathing room. So you get Saquon Barkley on 2 big runs, and I'm bet Philly and all their fans are saying, yeah, we got this one. Yeah, Barkley's about to show them. Well, the defense says not quite. Right. But you know what they did? They made 2 adjustments on the sideline, and there were no more gaps. There were no more cutbacks, right? So all the great vision he had, all he was seeing were Giants uniforms, and he's getting tackled for loss.
Riley E in the comments, O-line protection in the passing game looked good last night too. Yeah, it all works together, right? If you run the ball, stay committed to the run, and you have a running back that finishes, right? So maybe the defense feels like in the middle of the play they're winning and they've got you stopped, and suddenly it turns into a 3.5-yard gain when it feels like it should have been a negative play. Skattebo effect. Quarterback under pressure, buying time. Again, I talk about he scrambled. He looked like Fran Tarkenton. He scrambled all over the place. He had Wandell. He overthrew him, incomplete. But normally that's a sack. The quarterback's legs are helping that. Andrew Thomas being back obviously is that. And then on a 3rd down, when somebody makes a contested catch with their hands, as opposed to what would we talk about? Oh, the pressure got to him. They got sacked. He didn't. So everything works together. But Riley, your point's well taken. We talked about Austin Schlottman coming in for Schmitz. Schmitz played well. Andrew Thomas is the glue. But tip your cap, Illuminor, everybody. But yeah, look, you got Denver coming up. Denver plays the Jets in London this week. Denver has a good defense. Mile High is a tough place to play. Then you're going to play Philadelphia again. You know, do they take another step next week and then a week after that? Because right now we saw the beating of an undefeated team who everybody lauded as one of the best teams in the NFL. And I know they had some injuries on the O-line, but everybody said you can only look at it at that time. In that time, it was like, ooh, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, 3 straight wins, 3 division wins, coming into MetLife Stadium. Giants went wire to wire on them. Horrible performance in New Orleans with mistakes galore. And we've already chronicled that. Oh, my God, this team is garbage. Philadelphia, you dominated them for the most part of the game. So now what we want to see, Carl, is the next game. Stack. And stack might not necessarily mean win, but stack means play really well and make sure with 5 minutes to go in the game, you have a chance to win. And
Guess
then
what
you're
they
gonna go to
had?
Philadelphia.
Guess what
Chance
they
to
had
win.
on Sunday? They had mental stamina.
Mhm.
They never lost focus the entire nowhere. Special teams, no balls hit the ground for the returners, right? They made great decisions. The coverage guys were great. Defensively, no lapses. You had the one overthrow by Hurts, went to the sideline, regroup. That wasn't available the rest of the game. Offensively, no late game, no procedural penalties when you needed to have something to keep a drive going. That's the mental stamina I'm talking about, folks. That's the mental endurance. And the better you get physically, the better you have to be mentally. Because if you can overwhelm people physically, they're going to count on you making a mistake, letting them off the hook. We saw exhibit A of that was in the Dallas game, and it got minimized each game, and then kind of reappeared again at the worst time in New Orleans. And then you come back, you make your corrections, and you beat the Super Bowl champions. And say what you want, even that game against the Chargers, Justin Jefferson played. You didn't know it. He didn't impact the game like he normally does. He's an above the X's and O's guy too. Against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, you mean Keenan Allen? Keenan Allen.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I said Justin Jefferson. Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quentin Johnson had the one touchdown catch, but yeah.
Correct. Kansas City. They took away a lot of what Kansas City wanted to do, and they put panic in Patrick Mahomes. Uncharacteristically throws the ball backwards twice because they were getting to him. Okay, Jalin Hurts in this last game didn't impact the game the way that Philly's accustomed to doing to a Giants team. Their four best receivers, Barkley, Brown, Smith, and Goddard, right? Goddard made a couple good catches, but boy, were the Giants physical with these guys when they caught the football? Absolutely, right? They weren't taking over the game. They weren't breaking tackles. Barkley, they got a 3rd and 1. They throw a swing pass to Barkley, should be barbecue chicken. Him in space, guess who gets him down to the ground? Cor'Dale Flott, corner against Barkley. You know why he was able to do that? Mental stamina, number one, because he said, I got to take the right angle. I got to use this sideline to my advantage, right? It's me, him, and the sideline, because if he cuts back in front and in between me, he's going to get this 1 yard and then some. So it was just a great play, but that is the makings of a winning culture, the makings of a dominant defense. And they're not there. I'm not singing the praises to saying that they've arrived, but they're coming. And if they continue to play physically dominant football and they can get their mental stamina to match their physical play, they're going to be a hard team to beat. Now, not projecting wins and losses here, but I'm going to project a competitive game every week that they'll give themselves a chance to win.
All right, I have a final feel-good thing for Giants fans because, look, we've all been crapped on for basically the last 10 years, and it was so low coming off that New Orleans game after the high of the Chargers game. But here's something you can feel good about, and if you live like in Central to South Jersey where you commingle with Philadelphia fans at all times, you got a little something here. But think about this. They played the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. They played the Chiefs. Now, I know the Chiefs are not a juggernaut, but they still have Mahomes and Kelsey. They played Goff and the Rams, Puka Nacua and all that stuff. They played Baker Mayfield, who's like insane as far as putting points
Mhm.
up on the board. And they played the Denver Broncos, who have a really good team. You know which team has scored the most points against the Philadelphia Eagles in a single game? Your New York Football
There you go.
Giants. 34. First time this year anybody scored over 30 points against Philadelphia. The Eagles had given up 9 touchdowns in the first 5 games. You got 5 of them against their defense.
Yeah, 5.
Like, just let it wash over you. Just enjoy it. Who cares what anybody's? You got a whole weekend now. Like, you could go apple picking and wear your Giant gear. Hey, listen, I was in the airport this morning catching the 6:10 flight out of Newark. I saw more people in Giant gear, and I travel every week, year round. I saw more people in Giant gear this morning than I've seen in probably 6 months. So you got that little nugget. The Giants have scored more points than the Eagles in any game this year, and it's not like they played Tennessee, and it's not like they played some of these other teams that can't score. They played good teams, and you got 5 touchdowns against them. So use that against your Eagle fans. You got a final thought, Carl?
No, I just say keep good going, keep stacking, make this the expectation. If you're a fan, yes, expect this because it wasn't a fluke. Expect your team to do this and hold them to this standard. And then we'll see.
All right. If you want to get the tumblers, if you want to get the coffee mugs, you go to the Believe shop and you can pick up all your Believe in Giants gear. We want to thank the folks at FanDuel, as always, and we're going to enjoy the weekend off as well, and then we'll be back next week to preview the Broncos. How do we like to end this, Carl? Oh, the live version. Thanks for everybody for participating.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, everyone.
How do we like to end this thing?
We like to end it with tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.